Colby Kinggard. I'm good.
Colby Kinggard, so Saxon. So today we're going to be talking about how you went from an average realtor to an expert investor. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't actually start as an average realtor. I got into it as an assistant to a realtor, and I watched what they did. I saw the difference between them selling from and to home buyers and from them selling to and from investors, and I just fell in love with the investment side of it.
Gotcha. Okay. So how long ago was that?
That was about either 4 or 5 years ago.
Had you already thought about doing anything like that, or?
No, I never thought I'd be in real estate at all. I just needed extra cash, so I was somebody's age, or I was somebody's. Hold on. I never thought about being in real estate at all. I just needed extra cash, honestly. I was just their assistant, and I honestly saw how much money they were making. I saw the type of work they were doing, and it looked fun. It looked enjoyable to me. And I liked being able to do something that made a difference, not pretending I'm doing the Lord's work, but seeing properties change, seeing neighborhoods change, and seeing people's lives impacted for the better was really inspiring to me.
For sure. So originally you wanted to, growing up, be like an actor, you wanted to do something?
I went from everything. I went from movie director, marine biologist, paleontologist. You can follow the trend. There's Jaws, there's Jurassic Park, there's Steven Spielberg. I went to college for public relations and marketing.
Okay.
So I said I'll just go work for some PR firm or something. And obviously that's not the direction I ended up going.
Yeah. So that just switched just by being somebody's assistant?
Yeah. I realized really quickly, half the people I was working with didn't go to college at all.
Oh, wow.
And they were making far more money than what I ever thought I would make with a college degree. That was probably thing number one, but thing number two was just how fun the work was, how enjoyable it was.
Yeah. And so do you feel like as you've taken on more responsibility, that work has has it decreased in fun or has it increased in fun?
It's still enjoyable. I'm a firm believer if you don't enjoy what you do, then don't do it. Find something else. My role has changed a lot over the last 4 or 5 years, but I love that progression. I love how my role is evolving and what I'm doing is changing. If I did the same thing for years and years, I'd probably get tired of it really quickly.
Yeah. How do you feel like do you feel like traditional real estate agents are always meant to be in real estate? Do you feel like anyone can be in real estate, or do you feel like some people might have like a calling in a different area?
I think everyone can try to be in real estate. It's trendy, and you see a lot of people on TikTok and whatever selling these get-rich-quick schemes that I think drive a lot of people to go take their class. But I think the statistic, at least here in Arkansas, was only 1 in 5 who take the class get their license, and out of that, only half actually keep their license for longer than a year.
Wow.
So as far as traditional realtors go, there's nothing wrong with that. Some people are in love with selling and buying, or helping sell and buy homes, and this married couple over here that needs more space for their kid, or this person over here that just wants to upgrade or downgrade, and they love that, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not for me. Generally, this is not condescension, but usually there's more emotion involved in those types of transactions. And as my wife likes to tell me, I'm not the most emotionally in tune. So I prefer the investment side of real estate, where it's mainly just about numbers. Either the numbers work or they don't.
Yeah. So what do you feel like makes the difference between the traditional real estate agent and the expert investor?
I would say it's what you flourish at, what you do well, and what you enjoy. So a traditional realtor is probably more into marketing themselves, the showmanship, gaining these connections and contacts over years and years of hard work. Whereas the investment side, it's more results driven, I would say. At the end of the day, people don't really care how nice or how mean you are. If you're providing the results that they want, then they're going to keep using you. And it's going to be a lot more repeat business on the investment side than what you would see on the traditional side.
So how have the past several years looked like for you as you've like come into being this expert investor? Has it become more intense? Have you had to sacrifice a lot of things? Have you had to take up a lot of things? All of the above, or what?
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster for sure. Starting out from nothing, starting my career in real estate, I didn't have any business at all to speak of. I didn't have a part-time job. I didn't have any income for a couple months, and that was scary, especially being married. We needed me to make some money, and it was very, very much a snowball effect. So we went from nothing to just one person that had me managing some properties for them, and through my management of those properties, I learned by default what makes a good deal and what doesn't when it comes to investment real estate. Thinking about what would residents like or not like in this property, what are some things that could cause some issues while the resident's staying there. I became really, really in tune with those things, and so by doing that and by drumming up business and by being surrounded by like-minded people who were also in investment real estate, collected a small book of business. But that small book of business, because it was consistent repeat business, had me do very well last year.
That's good. And so you still did well even facing like the troubles of life, like COVID was still has been pretty like heavy, and I think last year was heavier than this year for sure so far. You're married. You're also like trying to lead people. How did you find success amidst all that?
One thing that I like about investment real estate is that it doesn't really matter what the market's doing. I could never be comfortable with the idea of doing a career where if the market goes one way or another, because it's always fluctuating every couple of years, I'm at the mercy of it. In investment real estate, when it's a seller's market, usually you have cheaper loans, more people looking to buy, so more startup investors that can get funding. So there's your clients. During the opposite, when it's more of a buyer's market, you've got people who have been saving cash reserves, waiting for that type of market for those prices to go down. Even though interest rates are higher, they're not concerned about that. They're putting more cash down. So regardless of which way the market pendulum swings, you've still got business going regardless. It doesn't stop.
Okay, so that's why, is that a reason why you would suggest people to get into the investing side?
Yeah, I love investment real estate, and I think if you're somebody who is really hungry to do business and really results driven, and maybe you don't do that great at the empathy side, listening to somebody's life circumstance, real estate is still a place for you. I would just say maybe it needs to be more of the investment side. I wouldn't say real estate's for everyone. I think there's a lot of people who think it's for them, but they don't have, I don't mean this as an insult, but they don't have the drive to put in longer than normal hours that they would working on somebody's payroll. When I started out, I was easily working 70, 80 hours a week and really not seeing much of it. It's the long-term game, and not everyone can do that. And sometimes it's not preference. Sometimes people have kids to feed, or they have a house payment to make, and they can't really afford those few months gap. So I wouldn't say real estate's for everybody. What was your second question to that?
Do you feel like everybody in real estate has a role to play?
Yeah, I think everyone in real estate has a role to play. I think a common mistake people make is just trying to copy other successful people in real estate. Who can have the most unique social media post? Who can have the most signs in the yards of a particular street? I think if you find your role, then you should really, really strike while the iron's hot. Some people are great at working for people who are moving in from out of state, and they should dig into that. Some people are great with working in particular areas and neighborhoods, and they should dig into that. I think if someone tries to be a jack of all trades, they run the risk of not being great at any of them. They're okay at all of them, but they're not great at all of them. So sometimes it takes doing that to figure out what you're really good at or what you really enjoy.
Yeah.
And for me, that was working for investors and then also managing their properties for them. So, yeah.
So you said something interesting about like trying to be a jack of all trades.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you feel about like the people who think that that's what it takes to be an expert investor? What's some comforting advice you could give them?
Comforting advice, I would say, is that there's a lot of different ways to invest. You can invest in short-term rentals, you can invest in long-term, you can invest in commercial, you can fix, flip, sell. There's a lot of ways to do it, and I really wouldn't say there's one cookie-cutter method, but I would say there is a right way to get started depending on the market you're in.
Okay.
Some markets are heavy cash flow markets, meaning you get more money on a monthly basis if you hold it. Other markets are more appreciation. You don't want to really invest in those if you're relying on that income, because you're not going to see it until you sell it sometime in the future. So I don't think it's a bad thing to try out everything.
Yeah.
I think it becomes an issue when you overly commit to everything at once. Because if you're being pulled in every direction at the same time, then no client, no area of your career is going to feel as though they're getting the full attention they should, and I don't think you're going to see the full results that you could.
Do you feel like some agents go kind of like they play in the shadows, like they kind of play second fiddle, but still are pretty effective?
Oh yeah, I mean if you even look at our local MLS sheet, you'll see some names at the top of the list that I don't recall ever seeing their name on a billboard or a shopping cart or a commercial on TV, and they're doing extremely well. The general public doesn't really know them, but that's because they don't really serve the general public. Their clientele is maybe out-of-state investors. Maybe their clientele is just a small group of investors who know them really well and would gladly refer them by word of mouth.
Yeah.
But the general public, home buying, home selling, has no idea who they are and has never heard their name.
Wow. And so you would even say for the people right now who kind of feel like they're going unnoticed, like that's okay?
Yeah, as long as you're using your time effectively. Some people, for what they want to do, they need to get that exposure out there. They need to invest in the marketing. They need to get their name and face. Other people, they just need to be grinding. They need to be going, knocking on doors, asking people if they want to sell.
Yeah.
They need to be looking for investment connections, any kind of networks that they can find that aren't necessarily public,
Yeah.
but they're accessible.
Yeah.
And I think trying to do both of those things at the same time at the beginning is fine to see what you do best, but if you're giving everything your all at the same time, I think that's whenever you start to falter.
Gotcha. So we'll kind of start winding down the questions here, but what would you say are things that people kind of need to let go of or take their focus off to step into this place of being like an expert investor? And then what would you say the things are that people need to kind of take on or start taking into focus or taking into consideration?
Some things to let go to be an expert investor. One is, I would say, get rid of the get-rich-quick mentality.
What does that look like? What is the get-rich-quick?
Well, some people get sold on the idea of their first purchase, they're going to make thousands of dollars immediately, or they're going to be able to pay off some big loans they have, maybe student loans, car loan, whatever, off of just one or two deals, and that's not always the case. Sometimes it happens, but I wouldn't say getting rich. Sometimes you profit really well, but the get-rich-quick scheme relies on you taking those funds and keeping them for yourself. It does not imply that you need to be taking those funds and continuing to invest them. That snowball effect is real, and if you look, farther down the hill, farther down the future of your investing, it's a really big snowball. You could have yourself a really big portfolio. In fact, you can even go years without seeing much in the way of income, but once you start paying those properties off or selling them, suddenly you got six figures coming in a year, and you're like, how'd this happen?
Yeah.
So I would say they need to let go of the get-rich-quick mentality. The other thing I would say they need to get rid of or let go of is the idea that with wealth and savings and investing comes some kind of twisted idea of fame or glory. I know some people that really, really want to put their faces out there. They really want recognition. They want affirmation. Let your portfolio speak for you. I mean, you don't have to prove yourself to anybody except maybe your lender, and all you've got to do with them is show them your returns, show them your portfolio.
Yeah.
So getting rid of the idea that you need to be famous in your town or famous in your county as this big wig investor, nobody cares about that.
Okay.
You spend too much time doing that, you're just running in place.
Yeah, kind of focusing on something else that's taking your attention. What about some things that you could start taking on or start putting your focus on?
Things to focus on, I would say, is one deal at a time. If you are trying to drive down a street with a lot of stoplights, you don't wait until every single light is green to start driving. You go when the first light's green, and then after that, and then after that, as they turn green. I like to apply the same mentality to investing. It's one deal at a time. Very rarely are you going to find some huge home run deal that's just going to change your life.
Yeah.
Sometimes you might, but that's not what you need to be looking for. So you really have got to look at one step at a time, hitting your goals, creating goals for yourself that are not just long-term, but short-term. Like, for example, someone says, my long-term goal is I want to be financially stable while retired, and I want my kids' college paid for. That's a great goal.
Yeah.
A short-term goal for that could be I want 10 single-family homes that are all paid off. That's a great goal. You can accomplish that in a couple of years' time and work your way towards that, with the end goal being that financial stability and paying off your kids' college.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's good. So, what would you say, like, how do you know what brokerage to be in?
Well, the right brokerage for you depends on what niche you want to fill in the real estate market. If you don't know anything and you really want someone to kind of hold your hand at the beginning, find a brokerage that has extensive training for new agents. If you are already pretty well versed in it and you really don't want someone breathing over your shoulder, find a brokerage that treats you more independently. Some brokerages focus primarily on investing. If you want to surround yourself with other like-minded people, go to those brokerages. Talk with the principal broker, see what makes them different from other brokerages, because the reality is a lot of brokerages are very, very similar, except for one or two, maybe three caveats. Figure out what those are and then go from there.
Gotcha. Okay. What would you tell some of these people who are wanting, like, desiring to go from traditional real estate agent to expert investor? What's something that you would tell them right now that would just give them a little rocket boost just to get started on this? Stop
waiting for deals to come on the market and stop waiting for someone to call you. Go find them yourself. That's how you provide results to That's how you provide results either to yourself as an investor, or you provide results to your clients. Is you're the one finding the deals. You're the one who is initiating, procuring these transactions. You're not waiting on some other realtor to list a house so that you can bid against 20 other people and hopefully get it, because truth is most clients could do that by themselves.
Yeah.
They can look on any listing website
Yeah.
and see when things come up. They can sign up for their own notifications and get an email or something when something hits the market. So stop waiting on other people to find the deals and initiate the transaction, and go do that yourself. That is the number one thing that is the biggest difference between an expert investor and a traditional real estate agent. You've got to go make those deals yourself. Don't wait on your phone to ring. Don't wait on a listing to pop up. Go find it.
That's good. Awesome. Thanks, Colby.
Yeah, no problem.